You're already live, sir.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks Strictly Sail for having us all here and giving us the opportunity to talk to everybody. Chris just gave us a great presentation on how he preps for tournaments. How many guys here have two fish finders on their kayak? I know Grimsley does. Who has over a 9-inch fish finder? Who doesn't have a fish finder? Are you looking at getting a fish finder? Okay. Well, it's good because they really help you, or they can help you out a lot in finding the fish. You're going to need to power it somehow, so you're going to have to get a battery. This is going to be a really quick run through. You're going to have to find some way to attach it to your kayak. You can use Yak Attack mounts. Chris mentioned another company. And every kayak's going to be different, so just find whatever's going to work for you and where you want your fish finder. Like Chris was saying, he lands his fish on one side of the kayak. It's going to change where you put your fish finder. So the biggest question I get all the time is settings for Garmin's. Go just check out Max Gordon's videos from MG Marine Tech. He breaks it down. Every single fish finder Garmin makes, he breaks it down, the settings. No one does it better than Max. He gave me some of the pictures for this too. Now there's two main things you're going to find on fish finders. One is down imaging and side imaging. They'll be called different things from different manufacturers. Garmin calls theirs clear view and side view. Clear view is their down imaging, which is shooting straight down. And this is really good for stuff in depth. And the difference between side imaging and down imaging and traditional 2D sonar is you get a much clearer picture of the actual size of the fish and what's actually going on down there. 2D you have to interpret the images, so it can make stuff look bigger or smaller depending on your speed. And side imaging is the same thing as down imaging, but it's shooting out the sides. So you can run down a bank and look 60 feet off either side easily. So here's a picture of some down imaging. This is when you want to use it. You notice it's deeper water. It's 17 feet and then it drops way off. And this is why I like down imaging, because in this picture here, you can see what the bait fish are, how big the predator fish are. And this enables you to target them, obviously, because if you fish straight down, you can obviously see in here, you can fish straight down on these, or you can move off from that flat and cast up to them. So this is where having a fish finder is going to dramatically help you for the back. And again, here you can see the same thing again. You can see what the bait fish are. On 2D, this will get so muddied out that you won't be able to see that the fish are underneath them. And this is telling you exactly how to target these fish. You know that you're not going to swim the bait to the top of these fish. You know you want to fish underneath them because all the fish underneath them except for like this one over this group over here. And this just makes it so much easier to know what you're doing and to give you more confidence. And instead of just blind casting in 15 feet of water, 14 feet of water, and running into them, your fish finder is going to lead you to the fish. So a lot of people, there's a big, we've all been hearing forward-facing sonar, and all the different big tournaments out there have been talking about it and whether it should be allowed or not. There's some ways you can combat it with side imaging. And here's a perfect example. So if you're running down this and you want to fish this boat, right? And this is off of Garmin, you can hit the pause button, and then up here in the right-hand corner will be a balloon. You can hit that balloon. You can put the X marks on here, and when you hit that balloon button, it'll come out and you can mark that spot. You don't have to drive right over top of it. So you can almost use your side imaging as forward-facing sonar does, because the biggest advantage of forward-facing sonar is that you're not going over what you're fishing. You're fishing it before you disturb the water. And using this is how you use your side imaging, is that I'd go down, I'd find this, I'd mark this in my fish finder, and then I'd come around the other side and start getting distances on it so I know exactly where it's at. And then you fish it from a distance, and you fish it from the side. So you can run up your fish finder this way, and when the boat or the rock pile can be out to your right. And as soon as you see your side imaging pick them up, stop, and then you know exactly where to cast. You know exactly how far, although I cut it off, this one's not showing it, you get the distance on here. And Garmin's really accurate with it, so is the new Humminbirds and Lowrances as well. And this is how you're going to combat it, is that you're going to keep off from the stuff you want to fish. You're not going to get the benefits of it being live fishing, where you're going to see the fish chase it doing this, but at least you can fish stuff without disturbing it, because that's the biggest advantage to forward-facing sonar. And here's more side imaging for you, and you can see, this is one of Max Gordon's pictures right here, so it was the last one. And you can just see the crazy detail you can get. And you can see old abutments. You can even see single fish staged up here. This is all just off of side imaging. Now forward-facing sonar. This has been the big dog in the room lately. And it is, if you use it, it's awesome. If you don't use it, it's not awesome. And a lot of people, when I say that, they're not using it correctly, right? And I'm still learning. I'm constantly learning new ways to use this. And when I first got it, everything for me was perspective mode. I looked at everything, and this is what perspective mode is. Perspective mode on the Garmin's is where it shoots out a flat image like this, almost like side imaging, but in front of you. And then you'll actually see the fish move. And in this picture, you can see these are bluegills hanging out. And these little guys right there, I keep on seeing them pop their heads out and pop down. So you can actually see it live, and you can see your bait come through these fields. And that's the other big advantage of it, is you can see the fish react to your baits. And this is where you would use forward-facing sonar, is in a situation like this that's no deeper than 10 feet. It's a very shallow imaging setup for forward-facing sonar. It was designed for bedding bass. Let's see if this will play. You can see me coming up on a tree right there. And it's in deep water, so it's a little hard to make it all out, but you can see some of the fish swimming around it as we go over it. And that's out on a local river here.
How far out is that river?
So on the side here, you can see the marks on the side. So it was about 25 feet out where it started at, roughly. And then it was probably went out to like 40, 45 feet. You know, and so that's the other thing. When you use this, you're using this to cut down on time. And you want to make the best cast you can make every cast. So I know where the tree is. I know where I want to cast to. What perspective doesn't show you is depth of field. You see the tree, but you really don't know exactly how deep the tree is. And that's where going to forward view or down view will help. And I'll show you some pictures of that. Here's a different tree out in the river. I'm sitting in 11 feet, but this is actually about 25 feet. That's why it looks so black around it, because it's in much deeper water. All those bright spots on there, those are really big hybrids.
Might be a couple of my blade baits too.
That might be. If you're throwing big blade baits, they might be some of your blade baits. You know, so this right here, when I was fishing this spot, and unfortunately I didn't catch video of this, but when I was casting out to this, you could see them chasing the bait back in. And I would have, if I was just blind casting out there, I would have never known that they were there. So I started stopping my retrieve, like much more than I normally would. And then I finally got it that they wanted me to jig it right over top of them real fast and then kill it. And that was all because I saw them there. It'd be so hard to target these, even with like traditional sonars, because you go over top of them, you would disturb it, and then they'd be gone. Because these fish don't hang out. As soon as you catch one or two off of this, all those fish will leave. The motorboat comes over top of it, all those fish will leave that spot. Now here's where I'm using perspective mode in conjunction with down imaging. And this shows you exactly what I was talking about, how you lose perspective. So that's a weed field with a bunch of bass swimming around in it. In the school, and you can see the bass here, but look how short the weeds are. They're only like 2 to 3 feet off the ground. They're not very deep at all. So you lose perspective of how deep things are when you use perspective mode. Oops. Now here's forward mode, and this is something that this year I've really dialed in on. And this is, honestly, I think like the hidden secret of forward imaging is using this mode, because it says forward mode, but if you look, this is where the kayak is. So it's actually shooting just a little bit behind you too. So you not only do you get underneath you and a little bit behind you, you get all this in front of you. And you can change the depth and the range you want to look. You go up too far, it becomes ineffective. But here you can see the fish, again, very close to the bottom. That you wouldn't necessarily pick them up like that if I was in perspective mode. That's a little deep for perspective mode. But even if this was shallower, those fish make it just look like rocks in perspective mode. Here's that tree from a couple images ago. So you think that tree was really deep in the water, but the top of the tree is right about 6 feet deep. So that tree, even though I was sitting in 15 feet of water or so, you would think it'd be really deep, and you just cast a crankbait straight at it and roll right over it. It's not really how you want to fish it, because you'll just get tied up in all the branches that were above it. And I wish this was moving. I wish, again, I caught some video of this. These are fish right here, and you can see them swimming, literally doing circles around this. So, and then how I fought that is, you can see that I'm like about 25 feet out from the beginning of it. It goes out to about 40 something feet. As I just came up and I started vertically jigging on them, right on the edge of it. And you can do that with down imaging, but you're gonna have to run over the tree first. Where this, I could just come right up to the edge, jig on my fish that I saw, and it's all about precision casting, using your electronics. That's the whole reason I have them. And this got a little washed out from the glare, sorry about that, but this is what bait fish look like on it. See how much smaller they are, how much more distinct. You can tell that they're shad versus these, right? I mean, look how much bigger the return is on these fish. You can actually tell the size of fish that you're going after with these guys. That's why you're seeing these guys who fish these big power baits, these big swim baits, do so well. A lot of times you're using forward imaging, and they find these guys, and they can swim those big baits, and as soon as a fish reacts to it, they know to either kill it or pick it up to get the fish more interested. They have so much more input that they have of information that they can then control their baits to get the fish to elicit that bite from the fish. Because that's really what we're trying to do. There's only so many biters out there. There might be 10 fish on this, but might only be 3 fish that bite off of it. So you're only fishing for those 3 fish. And if you're fishing for bigger fish, and you're doing tournaments, or you just like to catch bigger fish, electronics are gonna help you out a lot. Now, I wanted to talk about the Humminbird, because, not that I own this, I'm a Garmin guy, but this is super powerful tool. The 360 on the Garmin is really something unique on Humminbird, and Hummingbird's the only one making it. So it doesn't give you exactly a live image. It literally, this line refreshes it and it spins around, but it gives you awareness in 360. And thanks to Mike Gunder for giving me these photos. This is his setup right here. And you can see here, this is scattered grass in front of him. And he cut down his 360 signal, so this will refresh quicker in that it will only refresh between those 2 lines, and will actually give you a quicker refresh rate when you cut down on how much you're viewing on the 360. And here you can see him using 360 incorporated with Hummingbird's forward facing sonar, where he is outside the weeds. Right, this is the boat. He's outside the weeds, and he can see the weeds on his essentially this would be forward. We call this forward on a Garmin. I don't know what a Humminbird calls it, but you can see exactly how tall the weeds are. There's a hole behind the first set. There's another hole behind the second set. First hole, second hole. This gives him so much confidence when he rolls into an area that he sets up, and that he has total awareness of what's going on around him. So if a school of fish move in or school fish moves out, he can see that they move left, that they move right, that there's a big rock pile far off to his left that he hasn't fished yet, or wherever the weed line is or isn't. As you can see, there's no weeds. Way back here, you can see that there's some fish right there located. So this is all just helping you do things quicker, faster, and more accurately. And that's really all we use the Fishfinders for. And that's it, guys. It's a simple, quick one. You guys have any questions about any Fishfinder stuff?
What kind of battery are you using to support two fish finders of that size and the imaging?
Okay, well this one isn't mine.
Well, I mean, the similar
But
setup.
yeah, he's running, I believe, a 75 amp hour for this. He's running a very big battery for it. Because he's got two giant screens, I believe this, yeah, that's a 12, and that's a 15. So that's using a lot of juice. A lot of juice.
To get ESPN on that top?
He might. I think that both of these you actually can plug in some type of a video into it, so you could watch something off your phone or whatever. But this is on a kayak too.
I know.
Grimsley
that's
runs
crazy.
too. There's a guy I've met recently who's running 4 fish finders on his kayak.
On his kayak?
On his kayak, he has 2 up front, and then he has 1 on either side. And they're all big. They're all. I think the smallest one was 10, and that was like off this casting side or something.
Oh my god! Like what else? Like what more can you have? And they're all the same brand, or does he?
No, they're all. It's all
Lowrance
three.
Sign Imaging, Hummingbird.
So he's got one, and I forget which one he said was the best one for the maps. Right? He had one for maps. I believe it was actually Lowrance for the maps. He had Hummingbird for the side imaging, and then he had Garmin for live scope. And then he would run on the second one up front. He would run down imaging on it, and he was just real. And he liked to fish crappie a lot, and he said that was the reason.
Yeah, those
he loved to
crappie
fish
guys are
crappie.
really into that. You can pick which crappie you want to catch out of the group.
Oh yeah.
Going back to right there. See how you have that line that's going through that one beam?
Mm-hmm.
I have the same thing. Did you talk to Garmin about that?
Yeah.
They're saying it's a damaged transducer or a damaged wire, but
I don't know if it's a damaged wire. Mine comes and goes a little bit.
does it?
You know, it could be a damaged transducer because this is my old transducer and it's been around for a little bit.
Yeah, mine does the same. In one beam, it's got that line, but mine looks like it starts at the bottom of the beam and it looks like bubbles coming from it, the interference.
Yeah.
It's only within that one ray coming off.
See, it's the ghost tree. I think that's what it is. I think that's the remnants of the ghost tree.
So on mine, it's only on that one, and I was on the water and I spent like 3 hours with tech support. They ran me through everything, and they want me to send the transducer back. It's just not that big a deal to.
It may be a damaged one. Mine comes and goes, so I don't really know what it is, to be honest with you. Like it pops up there and it'll stay there because this is absolutely nothing. There's nothing.
Have you tried doing the screen record on yours to do like videos like that?
Mine does not do stream record. I have the Ultra 10.
That's what I have. It'll record.
You'll do it.
It doesn't like video.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll record it right to your card.
Oh no kidding.
I want to start doing it. I want to start doing it because I think videos would be cool if you could see that.
I know it did the still images. I didn't know it did the video. I thought you had to have the next one up to do the video.
No, I think you do straight, and it's got and those have two slots for cards too, so you can put another 32 in there. But
that's one of the nice things about getting the bigger fish finders that you do have 2 slots for cards, so you can have your map card in, and you can have your custom map card in, or whatever you want in.
yeah,
You know, one to cover your images that you're going to record.
I think I have 900 waypoints just from this season.
Yeah. You just.
I just drop it every time, like you were showing with that side imaging. I had always watched the Hummingbird guys just point that and put a waypoint. I was like, man, I wish I could do that. And I did a search and finally found that. One thing I like to point out to people, because when you first start doing it, you do it all the time. When you pause that, when he said, you did that, and you said the upper corner, make sure you do that upper corner, because if you hit the mark at the bottom, it's going to mark where your boat is, not where that point is.
Don't ever hit mark here, because this only marks where your boat is.
Yeah. So I made that mistake when you said that.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually wanted to say something. I totally spaced on it. That's a really good point, because I did that when I originally first got it. I was like, oh, this isn't working.
Yeah.
This isn't working. And I kept on setting the damn waypoint and coming back. I'm like, it's not there.
And Garmin's are so precise. I mean, if I look out and say, hey, I'm 50 feet away from.
Even just their head units, even without their pumps.
Yeah,
really
they're 3 meters. They're 10 feet just right out of the box, or a lot of them aren't. But I mean, almost every time I could go and I could pull and I could feel right where I was gonna hit that rock pile or brush pile.
And that's exactly how you deal with people if you don't have forward-facing sonar. How you deal with it? You just run down an area, you just start hitting waypoints on everything you see, and then you circle back around. And you figure out which ones are worth saving.
Yeah, if I had to choose between live scope and side imaging, I'm taking side imaging.
Yeah, side imaging I think was more revolutionary than forward-facing sonar.
I agree.
Because it changed. It opened up everything. All of a sudden, you're seeing 100 feet or plus out each side of your bow.
And oftentimes I'm using my live scope, just like you said, you know, it's side imaging but forward. I don't really, even if there's not fish there, even if I can't see them on the screen, I can see where the start of that, you know, that structure is, and I can see where I'm casting that's going through there and where my bait's running. You can learn a lot about live scope even when you're not catching, or about the lake from live scope even when you're not catching fish. I mean, it's just
You're watching it live.
The amount of bait that we come up to, like you just see this huge bait pile, and you just see them as you get closer. They kind of just fade down, and you go over them. And you would never know.
Yeah, that's what impressed me most when I saw what was happening with bait fish with forward-facing sonar being live, was how easily we spook them, even in kayaks. Because I had my kayak, when I was first in my kayak, I was like, oh, we can go right over top of everything. We're in kayaks, we're quiet. No way, man. So many, the better fish leave that brush pile when you're 10 feet away from it.
I look out 100 feet, and I don't have the detail that I would have if I had a look.
100 feet.
But for me, it's better for me to understand what's going on around me than to actually see the fish.
Yeah.
And even on the bait balls with live scope, you can tell when you see a big loose bait ball, they're kind of far apart. They're relaxed. They're not worried about predators at the moment. When you see them all real tight, they're scared, they're nervous, and they're being.
It's cool that you can actually watch it happen.
Yeah.
You can watch them cruise down, all of a sudden they get nervous. And
you do get caught up just watching it sometimes. You know, it's fun to watch.
Actually, when I first got it, I went out several times without rods, and I just watched. Because it was a lake that was close to my house too, but I was just like, oh, this is so cool, man.
Do you have to constantly tweak your settings when you go out every time, or is it something you can kind of just set and pretty much use?
Well, there's a double answer. It's like yes and no, right? So if you go from Lake St. Clair to the muddiest water you can find, yeah, you're going to have to tweak it a little bit because you're going to get some interference with it, but you're not going to have to do a lot. If you go to Max Gordon's site or his YouTube channel and check out his videos, man, he has it nailed. Every single setting is just like perfect, and he even does it for like what transducer you have, whether you have the 54 or the 56 or the 52. He goes over stuff that he's a motorboat guy, so just realize that it's not a kayak guy. But no, not really, not so much. I've got mine set so if I go to St. Clair, I know I might nudge up the sensitivity a couple notches, but when I come back down to muddier water, I'll nudge it the other way and lose a little bit of sensitivity, so I don't pick up. Because usually you'll start picking up in heavy sedimented water, you'll start picking up like a haze almost. You can kind of see it here in this one. This is like really muddy water behind there. I wish this blur wasn't there, but you can see how it just goes kind of pink, you know, and that's the interference, and I should have knocked it down a little bit right there. But I'll be honest with you, most of the time I don't do anything. I just mentally know, oh, yeah, okay, it's a little, my screen's a little orange now. But once you get the initial settings down, it's pretty easy.
Hey Kurt, I just have one of these for a couple of months, and the side view has completely mystified me. So I think it's encouraging to hear what you said about, hey, this is almost as good as forward-looking sonar. So
the only thing you don't get is the live aspect.
Right. So can you go back to your slide where it had the
This
one
one
and the one before?
This one?
Talk about that a little bit, about how what you're actually seeing.
So what you're actually seeing is actually a pretty boring image other than the boat right here.
Right.
And there's a few fish swimming around behind it, and maybe some bait fish right here. But this is actually really smooth bottom. And the black space you're seeing underneath the boat, so this line is where your boat is, right?
Right.
And what you're seeing on either side is, it's not shooting down, it's shooting out like this. So this is what you're missing underneath of you in the boat.
Okay.
You're just seeing the side imaging. You're actually not seeing anything underneath you in this. Even if you see like there's some fish in there, they're really off to your sides.
And I can mount the 55-inch screen right there on the kayak.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
We have the technology.
Yeah, you just need a bigger battery, that's all. Hook up the TV, man, you can watch the game at the same time.
Interesting, thank you.
And you can see right here, like this is a 56 transducer, so
Right.
it's a little bit stronger transducer, a little bit better image transducer.
How much better is the 56 than the 54? Is it worth $350?
On a 10 it is.
Exactly, on the 10 it is, because the 10 has the higher screen resolution that can help you use the image quality that the transducer can put out. But now here's the caveat though. If you want to look really deep or really far, well then it's worth it, because it's just a more powerful transducer. It looks significantly farther. I actually went from a 54 to 56 on the 93, which is a 9-inch screen. And the only difference I found with it, my picture quality was exactly the same, but I could see another 50 feet.
Yep.
You know, because it could actually look out there. Before it would just muddy out.
Yeah, I did the same thing. If you have a UHD, it's not worth spending $350 on. But the 10s, like I got my 10s on the Black Friday thing where they were only $9.99, but they came with the 54. You would want to definitely get the 56. It does make a significant
And you'll
difference,
see-
especially side imaging. I mean, it's got unbelievable
So
side.
you wouldn't have that with a 50 photo with a 54?
No, you wouldn't have this video at all on a 93. The image quality, the pixels in the screen on this screen are almost double what's on a 93.
Yeah, that's why live scope on the 93 was awful for me, because you couldn't minimize, like split your screens.
Couldn't split your screens.
Yeah.
If you wanted to dedicate a screen to it, it was fine, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as you wanted to split it,
It
then
took
all of a
forever,
sudden
yeah.
everything was a blob, right?
And the big thing too, the 93 didn't have the processing power, so to switch from like charts to your live scope and back, it was. That's why I ended up going 2 screens, because I wanted to. It's so easy to lose what you're looking at on live scope. You know, if you're in current or wind, you're like, where did that go? And so I can look on my charts. I was going back and forth, and that's why I had the second
It'd
screen.
be nice to have the maps up like you got.
Yeah, my charts are super important to me, but yeah, the live scope is tough, because like you were saying, it's when it's in typical like forward facing mode, you're only 20 degrees out, so it's a very narrow beam this way, to give it this way, but
That's the beauty of it.
don't you think of like
It's a narrow beam.
don't you think panorama mode, or what do they call it?
Panel.
No,
Or,
the side imaging, I can't.
The side imaging?
Or the no, it's turned sideways.
Or perspective.
Perspective mode. I don't think nearly enough people use it. I think you're the only other person I know in a kayak that's talked about using it. But when you're in 15 feet of water or less, it's super powerful.
Yeah, it's really good. My only thing with it is if those fish are like not moving and they're just sitting on the bottom, you lose that separation ability to see that separation. Where when you go to forward, if they're an inch off the bottom, you'll see that black line underneath them. You know, you'll be able to see that separation.
The only way that I've ever been able to kind of get something, it's same with side imaging. You got to look where their shadow is. You can kind of see the little.
Let's see if we can get.
How often do you switch between the forward facing and the perspective?
I do a lot because I have both transducers. I have 2 transducers hooked up, Panoptics transducers. So on mine, I just hit a 3's one and 4's another one on the buttons. So I switch right between them. When I do that, is in a typical situation would be fishing this setup right here. If this was shallower, I should say, if this was more like 10 to 12 or right around 10 foot in this big flat, and then there was a deep part, when I'd come up to fish the flat, I'd immediately hit perspective. Boom, I can see the whole flat. As soon as I get off the flat and I want to see what's below me and what's on the flat to kind of see what's going on, I hit forward, because then I can see deep and the sliver in front of me. Now what Grimsley said is that the image angle is very, very narrow on this, and it's actually really good because when you look out 100 feet, if that was a very wide angle, you would have you wouldn't know where to cast. Since it's such a narrow angle, you point it over here and it's, you know, it's 10 feet that way or 20 feet that way. There's no question about it. You know, it's not like, is it going to be off to the right a little bit? Is it going to be off to the left a little bit? Where perspective is, I forget the angle, but it's very
like
close to
180
180.
degrees, yeah.
It's real close to 180.
So you're running, are you running 2 GLS 10s then, the black boxes too?
Yeah.
What battery are you running on yours now?
I run a 45 right now, or 40 right now.
Are you running only one Fishfinder?
Yeah, just one Fishfinder.
Oh, okay.
I just switched screens.
Okay, I'll say those 10s are power hungry. I'd say they probably draw about 35% more than the UHDs did.
Yeah, the 10 sucks down some power on there. So you can see it right there, how I got them set up.
Oh, that's nice.
So this one, this is racked up, of course, out of the water. This is set up for perspective, and then this is set up for forward.
Cool.
You know, and actually, this came from crappie guys. I saw a crappie guy do this. I saw a crappie guy who actually had 3 different transducers on his boat. He had one in the front, that pole set up something like this, and then he had one in behind him set up in forward as well. So as he rolled over past something, his buddy in the back, he had 2 fish finders set up, could look at it too.
Wow.
I was like, man, you guys spent it was in a John boat. I was like, you guys spent $6,000 just on transducers.
It's like a $1,500 car with $8,000 spinner wheels on it.
Now they were catching some crappie though.
Oh,
I
yeah,
can't
yeah,
lie.
yeah,
They
I
were
bet you
catching
they
some
didn't-
crappie,
yeah.
but
I'd have to eat a lot of crappie to justify 6,000.
but that's just transducers. That's not even the head units.
And then batteries, and that, like,
And the
think about what you
batteries?
pay for all that stuff, man. It's crazy. So are you running the 32? Are you running the original Panoptics on one and then the
Yeah,
Plus on the other?
Exactly. So the Plus is right here. I'm running that in perspective. To give
Oh,
me
so
the-
you
to
like
give me
that
the
one better?
Detail. I do.
For perspective?
I would actually like to have 2 of these if I had all the money in the world
Right.
to spend on this stuff. You know.
Yeah, it's not getting any cheaper either.
No, it's just getting more expensive. You know. And I stepped up into this in pieces. You know, I had a
Yeah.
different fish finder. I bought the Garmin,
Yeah.
and then I bought Live Scope, and then I bought another Live Scope, and then I bought a different head unit. So it wasn't like all at once.
Is that where you're running the 10 now?
Yeah.
Ultra?
For me, that's like the perfect size for me.
Yeah, anything bad. I can't believe how much those things weigh.
Yeah.
That was.
That's the big jump up because you go from a plastic screen to
Yeah.
a glass screen, a plastic bracket to a metal bracket.
Well, that was the thing with my dual mount is like I was like I don't know if there's anything that will hold 2 of these together because the 93s weren't bad
Yeah.
on that mount, but the Yak Tech thing holds it surprisingly.
Yeah. I like the Yak Attack. If you're looking for something that's you don't have to like figure out and rig up. It's
Yeah.
really easy. Brian carries them.
Oh yeah, the lock and load. That's what I use for all my stuff now, my GoPros and everything. I really like those.
Yeah. Guys, any other questions?
So on the side imaging you had there, can you tell if the bottom is hard bottom or soft bottom by looking at that, or is there?
You
How do you know if you're in gravel or mud or?
You can a little bit. It's not surefire. Get back to it. So yes, you can. It's not. You're not always going to be 100% on it if it's a. Oops. This is all soft bottom, and you can see right here. You see that right there, and this up in here. I believe that's the beginning of some hard bottom. Not rock or anything, but more like a hard clay to it. And this, all the rest of this is basically all silt. I actually have this exact same shot, but Max had, obviously his was much better than mine. Because he recorded his off in this fish finder. But yes, you can. And what may be a better indicator of it would be this one here. Obviously you can tell that this is rock, right? You know, it looks like rock. You know, and then this is going to be more than likely a softer bottom. Now, whatever that may be, it might be sand. I mean, it's just as soon as it looks smooth, In lakes, I always assume it's like a softer bottom. But that did fool me in Florida. There's a place I went in Florida and the bottom was like super smooth and it was like rock hard. It wasn't rock, but it was like whatever it was. It wasn't mud, but it was super smooth. So around here, you can almost guarantee it. If you see a smooth hard bottom, you know, and you can see like wood sticking up. Off from there. I mean, I nerd out on Fishfinder.
So Kurt, just a quick question, on
Yeah,
the,
absolutely.
on the one before that, it looks like the straight channel,
This
that one?
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the part about the boat blacks out, but on the one after that, you get a kind of hourglass shape. Why is that?
Because this is a roadbed. This is an old bridge abutment.
Okay.
And what's happening is he's running through here, and you can see part of the bridge here. And he has one before this where you can see the actual metal structure of the bridge on this side. And this is the old abutment. So you're seeing a raised roadbed. So he's coming over there, and that ground actually is raising up.
So
And that's why it's doing
sonor's
hourglass.
picking it up that way.
Mhm. Because it's shooting out to the side.
Yeah.
So as that raises up, it looks like it's coming in at you.
See, I knew that, I just needed you to tell me. You know, it's, when you look at this, you're trying to.
And this is why you want to switch screens, right? And switch over to a screen and see down imaging, because then you can see, oh, this just did just jump up 5, 10, 15, or 20 feet below me.
Yeah.
You know?
So I found myself trying to think, okay, this is how that technology works, and I'm in my head, I'm trying to put it into some sort of
You have to wrap
interpretive vision.
Yeah, you have to wrap your head around it, because what else do we have that we use that's anything like this? We don't. I mean, like in your daily life, are you shooting out lasers out your side to read your environment? You're not, you know what I mean? So this is like something you have to wrap your head around. And it took me years to understand side imaging and really get it down, because I didn't realize this was actually just because it was shallower for multiple years. You know, I just didn't know until I started playing around and actually getting better at fishing and spending more time on the water to see it. Because this right here, people think that this is like a canyon. It's not. It's smooth bottom all the way in between here. You know, actually, you can probably see a little bit of the creek bed in some places. If we could see the next, if you could see like another picture of it, you could probably see the creek bed off to the side. Well, doesn't sound like any more questions, guys. Thanks for attending, man. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks, Kurt.
I don't use my fish finder.
I know, that's why I was surprised you said you want to get life skill.
Well, I don't know if it's gonna be a boon or a help, but like,
But it would help you understand, like, when you know, like, when you've been fishing and you can see, like, at the talent, when you see it on that, it makes so much more sense than when you. I found that.
The 38 waypoints that I have, like I got along that line to stay there.
Mine told me this
So
year that I'm
some
out
people
of
put it over the
waypoints.
side
I've
or
used them all.
use it up.
Really?
I've only had, I don't.
Do you have a
know.
card in there?
Yeah.
An SD card in there?
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay. So,
How many do you have?
I take it
I
off.
mean,
Are
it
you
can't
taking
be
off?
that
Man,
bad.
thanks for stopping by, man.
It's not like
Okay.
I can hear
Oh, that's right.
McDonald's.
I'll figure, I'll leave it 2:30.
Okay.
I'll give you a call.
Yeah, we'll give you a call tonight. So it's really important, right? I mean, and the biggest parts are keeping it flat when you sit in the kayak. Because a lot of times people don't realize when we sit in our kayaks loaded with all our gear, and it might go like this, or it might go like this a little bit. You want to get it as flat as you can, because if you're shooting and you, let's say you're using that as
I was like, Melissa, make it look like
you
a
want to
picture
hit that
fish.
rock pile or that brush pile. Well, if that is tilted just a few degrees, you're talking feet different. Yards, you know what I mean? The farther you go, the bigger that distance is going to become because it's at a slight angle. So getting it as flat as possible. I like the side mount.
It's totally hard to.
You need help.
Yeah.
You need a buddy there, and you need to actually, like, you know what I do is like go shallow, like 5 to 10 feet, and I'd find something where I knew exactly what it was, and then I'd roll over it and see how it looked up my fishing finder.
Okay.
And be like, I should be right over it. Like you see a tree come off the bank and you have water and
I got
everything.
3 more.
That's like an indicator
Instagram
that
followers
says I
since
should
I
be right
started.
over something.
Gotcha.
Right.